I love coming here. I love Dana. We met in Singapore many years ago on a trip together, and then they invited us both back for the next year, so we got to spend 2 more weeks together and eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. The one announcement about eating healthy food, I forgot exactly how they worded that, but it was kind of like it's attached to your identity. So, Lord, we just break shame off everyone here. Give them the freedom to come and to learn and to grow in Jesus' name. Okay. Oh, this is good. I never think I need these things, and I do. 65. You use these guys? Awesome. Wow. Well, there's opportunity for more shame because I'm not healed. So. It's a funny thing, though. Believers spend more time managing shame than almost anything else. They get like their master's and doctorate in shame management. Just so that it's a shame that you mess around with your name. It's a shame. Never mind. There's not any that actually remember that song from the 1960s. Okay. All right, there you go. And some of you are going, who is this? What's this? The new people go, why is he here? So I just love this one. A child asked his father, Dad, how are people born? His father said, well, Adam and Eve made babies. And those babies became adults, and they made babies, and so on until today. And then your mother and I brought you into the world. Huh. I said, okay. He wasn't quite completely satisfied, so he went to his mother, asked her the same question. Mom, how are people born? She said, well, years ago, we were all monkeys. Oh, hang in there. Fight it! Years ago, we were all monkeys. We evolved to become like we are now. Child ran back to his father and said, Dad, you lied to me. This is what my mom said. This is what Mom said. He said, oh, son, no, I never lied to you. Your mother, she was talking about her side of the family. Okay, you can use that either way, father or mother. I just happen to use it that way. I know it's not the most PC but I'm not the most PC of guys, so that's okay. Anybody ever go through the valley of decision? Is anybody there right now? Does anybody ever have a question that they want to ask God face to face? When I get to Kevin, I cannot wait to ask God blank. Well, the fact is, when you get there, you're going to know the answer. So we already know that when we see him, we'll be like him. We will know even as we've been known. So when I see him, it's going to, oh, that's why mosquitoes. Oh. But questions are just part of life. I think sometimes we struggle with things because we're afraid to ask the questions because we don't want to appear weak. If I have a question, that means I don't have an answer. If I don't have an answer, what are you talking about? Because Jesus is in you. He is the answer. You must have an answer. I must have an answer. But I don't have an answer, but you must. But I don't. You're evil. And somehow along the line, we get this idea that we have to be, I stand, and when I've done all, I stand. I continue to stand. Okay, standing, I can stand in my weakness out of faith, even as the offering was being given to, those are three beautiful points, by the way. And the expectation of this seed is going to be to feed people. It's going to be to give me more seed. It's going to be to sell. I mean, that's just a brilliant understanding of it. And I have a friend of mine who's he's called Sergeant Ken. Sergeant Ken spent a number of years over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's 6'2" or 6'3" and built like a brick house. And I'm so glad he's my friend. That's all I can say. It's just, you don't mess with Sergeant Ken. He was Soldier of the Year 6 times. Just that tells you. I was Soldier of the Year once. Wow. Well, he got it 6 times. And he said this one time, because he was talking about some of the different sorties that he went on, and he saw a lot of things he wouldn't tell me, but a number of things that he did when he was overseas. And he said one of the things that we always had to do is we always had to be ready. We're always ready. We're always checking our equipment, whatever kind of firearms we have, we're always ready. And he said, why would I not be armed to the teeth? As prepared as I am, I never know what the next battle's going to be. And when he said that to me, I just thought, wow, there is a key to life. Why wait until the battle is on you to be prepared in humility, to be prepared with knowledge of the word, to be prepared in whatever form we need to be prepared? Why do we wait and we get overwhelmed when something comes on? And why not be prepared? Now, one of the things I have 3 daughters, and we've gone through a few weddings, and I paid for a few weddings in my day. And it's amazing how, for a man, they just seem to come together magically without much going on. My wife didn't think the same thing, because when she was done with the wedding, she was like, "Oh, thank God, it's all over." Oh, that was just amazing. And I was like, "Well, what was so hard? I just wrote the checks." And now, but there's a lot that goes into preparing for a marriage. In Matthew 22:2, it says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who arranges a marriage for his son." Gosh, I wonder what that's about. What king has a son who wants to marry a bride? And so anytime that goes on, there is a preparation for a bride. Now, I've never been a bride, don't plan on being a bride, but I've watched my daughters become brides. And I've watched them go through the process of all the preparation that takes place. And there's just a lot that takes place. Now, God's not arranging a shotgun wedding. Thank God he's not arranging a shotgun. Yep, you're the bride. Get up here. My son needs a woman. I'm so glad that the marriage of the bride and the bridegroom is not a shotgun wedding. But Matthew 22, really what happens is Matthew 22, if you know anything about this particular portion of Scripture, 22, 23, 24, and 25 are all linked together, and Jesus giving his final preparation to the disciples. That's what these chapters really are. They're kind of there's a finality to the preparation that he's giving them in preparation for what's to come. And in Matthew 25, it's the parable of the 10 virgins. And the only difference between them really is 5 are prepared and 5 aren't prepared. So preparation, he's trying to say over and over, preparation is a huge thing. Preparation, now, we don't know what lies ahead and what lies around the corner. But I know in my own life, I lean towards what I'm comfortable with. And sometimes the invasion comes from something I'm not comfortable with. And so I haven't yet prepared yet for this particular fight. Now, that was a number of years ago, and as the years have passed, I did it yesterday, the old McFly, you learn something over time that hopefully you learn from the mistakes. And some of the mistakes I've learned from being unprepared in certain areas. So this morning, I don't know about you, but I love David. David is a mighty man, and I love David as a worshiper, and David is a doofus. I'm seriously. I mean, you know, it's the times when kings go out to war, and what's he do? He finds a woman that's not his wife. I mean, that's about as doofus as you can get. And the fact, without going through the history of it, I look at David and them, but you can't look at David without understanding the grace and the mercy of God. So David is not just a human figure. David is the reflection, if you see him right, David becomes the reflection of the understanding and the nature of what God is like, which I love. And so what God does, God uses David to kind of open doors and to open understanding for us. When I began to help my daughters go through the preparation for marriage, I remember my wife turning to me, and I probably said this, though I think she said it, but she'd say I said it. This is a whole lot more work than I thought it was going to be. And we use that terminology here, let's get to work. Let's do this for the kingdom. And suddenly we take on this work mentality that which pleases God is the activity of our lives. And I just want to invade that with John 6:29 that says, the work, Jesus is saying this, the work of God is to believe. Now it says to believe on him who was sent. But it's not to do activity for the one that was sent. So literally, the hardest work for some people is actually to believe that God has that amount of affection for them. The hardest work for some people is to believe that they're totally forgiven. Sometimes the hardest thing for others, it's just to believe simple things that really are biblical and scriptural. But we find that we want to work to make something happen. Because we want to, you know, I grew up in a particular denomination. I'll be very kind. But when I was young, I wore a red robe with a white top and rang bells. And drank wine in the back room. And then I used to put bricks on the kneeler in the confessional, and the light would turn red, and then no one would go in for an hour. I know. But I'm not going to tell you what denomination it was. But I grew up, and it's not everywhere, but in my particular parish, but I'm still not going to tell you. Now, that's where I learned that Jesus was the Son of God. That's where I learned that he died for me. And the truth of it went deep into my life. And so years later, understanding the relationship was really easy because I had all the foundation of it, which I so appreciate. But there was so much work attached that we had to do certain things in order for this to happen. And then when I came into the kingdom and I said, well, that's already done. Well, what do you mean it's already done? But I don't feel like I'm doing anything. But it's been done. Remember when we said it's finished? Yes. What does that mean? Well, it means he finished and then he went around to the starting line and started again. I'm an old athlete. I used to run. And the finish line is great. What that does is get you ready for the next race that you have to run. And suddenly I found out, well, the race is already run. He ran it. And your job is to believe. So David asked a question in Psalm 8, verse 3. It says, when I consider the heavens, the work of your hands, the moon, the stars which you've ordained, what am I that you're mindful of me? My wife just sent some pictures to me while I'm gone, it snowed back in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And it's a gorgeous, just beautiful snow. It's on the trees. And I'm just so glad I'm here. But spring is here. You guys, you have a different world than I grew up in Rochester, New York. Just east between Rochester and Syracuse. I grew up in this area. It was the #1 snow belt in the U.S. We averaged between 100 and 150 inches of snow every year. And when summer came, those 2 weeks were amazing. We would get out, and I couldn't wait for summer. I remember June 6, 1966, and I was in 6th grade. I'll never forget that date. I'm in 6th grade, and suddenly we look out, and it's snowing. And we all stood up and walked to the window. It's snowing. And the teacher goes, "What are you doing?" "It's snowing." She goes, "Yeah, it snows all the time here." I said, "Not in June." I remember one year before I moved to Kansas City, it snowed 9 inches on May 5th. It's like, oh God, please, somewhere where there's no snow. But the one thing that happens is that when you see the sun a lot, when you see the stars a lot, there are things you take for granted and don't appreciate. I can tell you, when a sunny day shows up, when we see the moon at night, sometimes, it's a glorious thing. And so David has this awe of God. And I want to read Psalm 19 here. Well, not the whole thing. Verses 1 through 5. The heavens declare the glory of God. Bingo. If you stop looking at the heavens, you're not learning about God. If you take for granted everything that's in front of you, it's always going to be sunny, it's always going to be this, it's always going to be that. If you omit the heavens, you then stunt yourself in the growth of the knowledge of God because they declare his glory. The firmament shows his handiwork. Day to day utters speech. Night to night reveals knowledge. There's knowledge hidden in the nighttime. It's unbelievable. There's no speech or language where their voice is not heard. In other words, everyone in every language can hear it in the voice that's made for them. Their line has gone out throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. And this is the one here. In him he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like, here it comes, a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Now, years ago, there was this commercial for this wall cleaner, and it cleaned everything around the house, called Big Wally. Does anybody remember Big Wally? Hardly anybody ever remembers, but there was Big Wally, and it was so, they had this commercial, it was only on for like 1 year, and then all the women freaked out, and they wrote in, please don't ever have this commercial again. Big Wally, this woman would be working in her kitchen, and then suddenly the wall behind them, you'd see this image of this man all dressed in white in the wall. And then he'd step out, "Hi, can I help you?" And it was like, that's freaky. That's not right. You know. Suddenly Big Wally, he was there. But it's like, I see this, it's like it's the bridegroom stepping out of his chamber. He goes, "Come take a look at my magnificence in the heavens, and I will step out, and I'll meet you, and I'll answer your question." That's what he's saying in Psalm 119. So what are David's questions? Well, what is the beauty of the earth and the heavens that are out there? There's really three, and I don't want to, some people just hate science. Are you okay if we go into a small science class? I have never in my life heard that reaction. It's usually, oh. Okay, and then we're going to do trigonometry. We'll do a little string theory this morning, maybe, yeah. Well, if you ball it up big enough, no. Okay, we're going to start with macro, we'll do a little midi, and then we'll go to micro, all right? Macro is big. Midi is the world we live in. Micro is the world we don't see. So if we start with macro, here's my thought this morning. What are the questions that we have? Now, I'm going to ask you a vulnerable question, and I'm asking you to please be honest with me. Okay? 7 of you said yes. Okay, over here. Will you be honest with me for a second? Yes. Oh, thank you. I feel so much better. How many of you are still struggling with a question that's not answered yet? Before the Lord. You've asked this thing before. You haven't gotten an answer yet. Okay, good. Thank you. The others we'll pray for later. The earth, 8,000 miles in diameter. Yeah, 25,000 miles in circumference. Oh, we know the earth well. We were taught that when we were young. But you know that if you took the earth and then opened the sun up, cut it and opened it up and began to put earths in the sun, it would take 1 million earths to fill the sun. We have a small sun. If you took Betelgeuse, the star, and put the center of Betelgeuse into the center of the sun, okay, Betelgeuse, the star, would go out to Jupiter. What? Okay. The sun consumes 4 million tons of its own matter every second. 4 million tons every second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 20 million tons were consumed during that time. And it will continue to burn for 5 to 6 billion more years. Light travels 186,000 miles a second. A second. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, from edge to edge is 100,000 light years. Wait a minute. If it travels 186,000 miles a second, and 60 seconds are in a minute, and 60 minutes are in an hour, and 24 hours are in one day, and 365 days are in 1 year, how far is a light year? You know how far? It's a long way. At last count, there's over 200 billion galaxies. Does your head get it all? No, it's not meant to. And so we ask the question, are my problems too big for God? I'm not saying that to mock. I'm saying that if we look at the heavens, they declare his glory, and they shine back to me the answer. Oh, my problem is so big. Wait. 186,000 miles a second. And you just go through it and say, this is the glory of God. He wants you to look at that so that when you look at this, you go, oh, because we think of ourselves as our own galaxy. We are the sun, the moon, and the stars. Come to me and I shall give you rest. I will be your light and your salvation. And it's like, no, you're just Chris from Marion, New York. Oh, he's the big one. Oh, he's stepping out, the bridegroom stepping out and going, your problem is not so big. It feels big to you, and I'm sorry that it hurts, but your answer is me. It's not too big. Oxygen makes up 21% of the Earth's atmosphere. Okay? 21%. If it was 22%, the Earth would be destroyed by unstoppable and unquenchable fires. All we need is 1% more of oxygen on the Earth. Fires would never go out until everything was consumed. Wow. If it's 20%, it wouldn't take long where every living thing would suffocate and die. It has to be exactly 21%. There are moments when it's 22 and moments when it's 20, but they're just momentary. And it always goes back to 21%. And so we ask the question, are my problems or situations too complex for God? Well, the heavens declare his glory. What's he declaring by that? He's declaring that he upholds and sustains things in place. He'll keep you in place. He'll provide the exact, he's not going to let your life be scorched, and he's going to not let you suffocate in your pain and problem. He's faithful all the time. He's the 21% God. I love that. Somebody go, isn't he the 100% God? Oh, he is, but he's my 21% God. And he loves it. Nothing's too big, nothing's too complex. So David then asked the question, well, why are you mindful of me? And I love that question. What that question tells me is that David was a king who understood humility. He understood that something was larger than himself, and with a spirit of humility, he goes, with all that he took the time to gaze at the heavens. Back in the 800s, I should say, back in the 800s, they came to the conclusion that we're 866 stars. Because that's how many stars they counted. And they were 866 stars, and they were pretty sure that there were 866 stars. And then somebody came along with this little thing, this ugly little telescope thing, and they put it up to their eye, and then the one star, if you go to, oh my goodness, the teacher in me, the Orion's belt. Okay, if you go to Orion's belt, there's one star that's a little brighter than another star. Just do this sometime. If you get some binoculars, when you see Orion's belt out there, go to the one star that looks a little bit brighter than the other star. Put the binoculars up, your little telescope up, and it's actually made of a group of stars that are all clumped together. It's not one. There's 3 stars that go across in Orion's belt. You've all seen that. Have you looked at Orion's belt? Okay. Look at the sky. It declares his glory. It's really amazing. And when you begin to see some things, through a telescope, even through binoculars are really great. You can see it, and you go, wow, that's really nice. And you go, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of stars there. And so that's what happened. And suddenly they began to look up at the sky. They go, there's more than 866. How many are there? Thousands. And they were considered heretics. Don't change our number. That's how we've always done it here. In the MIDI world, 3-time presidential nominee William Jennings Bryan said this: when you explain to me the mystery of the watermelon, don't you love that? When you explain the mystery of the watermelon, you can ask me about the mysteries of God. He was a believer, and they say, you're a Christian, and you're a believer, and you talk about God all the time. And I don't know if that's why he tried for the president 3 times. He was nominated. He never won. I don't know if that was it because they considered him too religious or what the story was. But he finally said, listen, I'll talk about God when you explain the mystery of the watermelon. It's kind of like, okay, so what's the mystery of the watermelon? Are we having fun yet? Okay. I hope your heart's being encouraged. Anyway, one watermelon seed. And you were talking about seed this morning. And this is it's an amazing thing. And you said the work is to believe earlier this morning. I mean, really, you have the whole package, and I'm done. You did it. One seed, ready for this, draws 200,000 times its weight from the ground to produce a watermelon. Dang. That's Christian swearing, by the way. Sorry, that's as far as I go. Things like dadgum. My friend used to say dadgum. I said, what's that? And he said, that's Christian swearing. Okay, all right. One seed, 200,000 times its weight from the ground. You ever said, we spit watermelon seeds. We have contests to see who can spit the farthest. But that little puppy right there, he can draw 200,000 times its weight. And to us, it's spittle. And to God, do you not see its potential? And so we ask the question, are my gifts too small? He goes, no, look at the watermelon. What about the watermelon? Cut it open. Look at the seed. Where'd that watermelon come from? That one little guy right there. And how many does it feed at a picnic? I love it. God created watermelon just for picnics. A peregrine falcon. I love birds of prey. Anybody else love birds of prey? They just fascinate me, birds of prey. Just whatever kind, even an owl. Just the talons on a bird of prey are just, they're incredible. A peregrine falcon can spot a mouse 5 miles away. And here's another thing. If a peregrine falcon could actually read newsprint, okay. Somebody keeps calling me. I should answer it and just have you all say hi. They keep calling over and over again. So if a peregrine falcon is at one end of a football field, and you then went to the other end of the football field and held up a newspaper, the peregrine falcon could read it easily. Now, you're saying, it doesn't read. I know that. But if it could, it has the ability to read newsprint at 100 yards away. Oh. And so God created this thing, and we look up and go, oh my gosh, it's going into a dive bomb. But what's it? It's miles away. What's miles away? That mouse that came out of its little hole. He saw movement, and he goes, oh, dinner. I'm going. And then he gets up to 225 miles an hour on his dive. It's the fastest animal on the earth. There's one now it's not been confirmed, but this one guy said he clocked one at 245 miles an hour. Wow. So that thing is going, it's going for it. And then we ask ourselves, well, does God see me? Does God even see him here? Yes, he created the peregrine falcon so that you could know you're seen. And you're not even 5 miles away. Monarch butterflies. I love monarch butterflies. Upstate New York is monarch butterfly heaven during the summer. I love it. It's just filled with monarch butterflies. And I'm sure you have them here as well. They're not as nice as ours, but no. Sorry, I got a little territorial. I didn't mean to do it. But if you ever do any research on monarch butterflies, you go, well, monarch butterflies, they just kind of come and then, they're gone. Well, where do they go? They go to, ready for this? They literally go to one field in central Mexico. All monarch butterflies in North America fly down to central Mexico, and they all go to one spot. Now, do me a favor, wait until the service is over with before you Google monarch butterflies in central Mexico, okay? Okay, just put your right hand up. I will not go to monarch butterfly heaven until the service is over with, amen. Okay, thank you. I just know the reality of life right now. Suddenly I see all these bright faces because the light is shining up. And then you see this. Look at this, you see this? And somebody, you see that, you see that? Those little monarch butterflies that you saw, they take their little monarch wings from Rochester, New York, and they start going, they're on their way to Mexico. That little monarch butterfly next to you goes, where are you going? He goes, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I'm out of here, but I have no clue where I'm going. Why doesn't he have a clue? Because he's never been there. He's never been there. What? That's right. And the other butterfly goes, I don't know, I gotta go too. And the other guys are going, I think we need to go as well. So they all just kind of fly through the United States. They cross the border. They go over the wall. A couple of them find the tunnels, come out. And then they go down to central Mexico and they go, I'm done. And they all look around and go, so is everybody else. And there's billions and billions of monarch butterflies all here. And the young, they end up mating, dying, and the young ones that are born down there make their way up to there, mate, die, and their young come back to the same place. It's not the same butterfly that goes back and forth. It has a one-way trip. Passes away, and another one comes back and goes to the same thing. And then we ask the question, can God lead me? Well, if you've ever seen the size of your brain compared to the brain of the monarch butterfly, you better believe God can lead you. By the way, there's a clock. When am I done? Is it 11:30 and I'm done now? I just looked up and saw it's 11:30. And I'm sorry, I did not ask you the time I need to be done. Can I go another 5-8? Okay, is that okay, David? Actually, he's the guy I've been connecting with, but you're like the man, the myth, the legend. Okay. All right. I'll land this puppy right here. In the world of the micro, and the micro is the world that we don't see. How small is small? Well, there's this thing called string theory, and I'm going to, for the next 40 minutes, let me talk about string theory. I've studied string theory, and I don't remember anything I studied. No, I do some, but it's a subatomic particle. And here's the thing: it's a super string to an atom. Okay, atom, superstring. It's the same dimension as atom in the Earth. Did you catch that? The entire Earth, its size, its relationship in size to one atom. How big is one atom? Pretty small. Okay? Unless Adam has been eating a lot and he's a large boy, but it's the same thing in size as an atom to superstring. That's how small it is. It's unbelievable. And so you go areas that you can't see. A single rye plant's not a big plant, but a single rye plant, what you can't see is below the ground. It grows 14 billion root hairs, and one single rye plant, okay, it develops 100 to 300 miles under the surface. It just curves and curves and curves and curves and curves. And this rye plant, and then you see this one little rye plant coming forth here, and what you don't see is everything underneath. And does God care about the hidden things? Oh, you better believe he cares about the hidden things. I lived in New York City for a year, and I remember going by a building on a Sunday afternoon, walking by as my wife had taken our baby, gone up to see her family in Schenectady. I led worship that morning, and then I took the day off and walked through Central Park, went to Central Park Zoo, walked over on the east side, and noticed a building being built. And it had a big wall up, and there was a little walkway into it that somehow had a sign that said, entrance, no entrance, danger. I don't remember seeing it, because I remember walking through, and don't do that at home, kids. And I remember getting inside, because I peeked over and I saw there was a hole in the ground. I wanted to see the hole in the ground. I remember getting close, and I took a rock, and I threw the rock. There was a picket fence around it, not a picket fence, a chain link fence around it, so he couldn't get to it. But I threw this rock and listened, and I could not hear it hit the ground. So I got closer and took a bigger rock, and I threw it, and it just went. I thought, oh my goodness, that's deep. And then this big man appears with a yellow hat, and his head was so big, it looked like a thimble. It wasn't one of those that fit on, it just somehow stuck. He goes, what are you doing? Sounded like the trees from the Wizard of Oz. What do you think you're doing? I said, I can't believe how big it is. And he said, you got to leave. I said, okay, I know, thanks, but I can't believe how deep that is. And he looked at me and he said something that stayed with me ever since. He said, listen, kid, and I was a kid back then. Listen, kid, if you're going to build high, you better go deep first. I wanted to kiss him, but I knew he'd kill me. Here's the thing. Going deep is the area that nobody sees but you and God. Investing our lives in the kingdom, we want something built up for all to see. But the fact of the matter is, I will build my house. I will build my house. And so I partner with him because I want to go deep. The deeper I go, the higher he can build. It becomes dangerous for me to ask God to build something high if I don't go deep. That's disaster. So how do I go deep? I believe the things that he says. Every question I have, my work is to believe. And when I'm confronted with the questions of life, how do I handle them? Do I react? Are people around me scared when I'm going through a time of pressure? Do they not want to be around me because I'm vicious? Do I haul myself off into a cocoon and become the person that doesn't talk? I'm not believing then. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just saying our invitation is to believe every question he answers. And most of the time, I can see the answer if I open my eyes and declare and look at the heavens. His answers are there for me. Lastly, and really lastly, is David asked the question, am I disqualified because of my sin? Phew. That's a big one. Lord, I've screwed up so bad, you have no idea. Really? I actually do. I've actually created billions of people, and you're not even close to being the biggest screw up. We live in a day right now where grace is talked about in unusual ways. And I'm not trying to establish a particular doctrine of grace here because I'm a visitor, so I'm not going there. But I'm just going to say this. I need grace. I always need grace. I don't think there's anything called sloppy grace. I think it's called sloppy obedience. Grace is perfect. It's perfect. Forgiveness covers sin. Grace invites me to live again. We use words like love and faith and mercy and grace. And then somebody use the word grace. And I had somebody say this to me recently. They said, you need to balance that. I said, how do I balance? What do you balance love with? Hate? Do I need to add a little bit of hate to my life so I can balance out love? How do I balance faith? Well, it's unbelief. I just stopped believing certain things. I will believe 70% and I will not believe 30%, and I will live kind of a balanced life. How do I balance mercy? I'm judgmental. I just make sure I have enough of a judgmental spirit in my life to make sure that I'm balanced. So how do I balance grace? How do you balance something so perfect? I've gone through every scripture over and over and over again about grace. There's nothing negative about grace. It's beautiful, and I need it, and I want it in my life. Can I abuse it? I can abuse anything and anyone. But it doesn't take away the power of grace. So I don't want to denigrate the term. And here's one of the things that happened. I was recently in a group of pastors, a large group of pastors, and I said, how many of you are afraid to talk about grace? You wouldn't believe how many of them raised their hand. Because people have attacked a particular minority of people who abuse it And now they're afraid to talk about the truth and the power of it. But let me tell you something. You know what got David back up off his knees and on to living as a better king? Was the grace of God. Because it's the goodness of God that leads to repentance. And so, Lord, we have a lot of questions. We're a people, and we know that you love us. Life isn't always, as they say, fair in how we see it. And so the questions of life, it seems to demand answers. But Lord, I thank you that you allow us to open our eyes and see the beauty of heaven that declares your glory and your answers over and over again. Let us be people that see, and let us be people that believe what we really see. Thank you for the God that has more than just an answer. You have the power that is behind the ability to deal with every question that we have. Just put your hand on your heart for a second and say this with me. Just say, Lord, help me become one who believes, because my work is to believe. In Jesus' name.